we are finally at the point where we can start building some stuff. So what we have here is the right foot, which I'm gonna show specifically because it's got this extra part that is gonna go for it. Then we have the turret that is gonna go inside the foot. We have the piece that will allow to connect the headmaster carry to the bigger tank mode, and then we have the cover that goes over the turret. Last but not least, trying to find where I put. Well, it's still connected to the leg, but we are also gonna show the ankle connecting, and then we're gonna build the rest of the leg all together. We are at the point where we got the foot and the side panel connected. Technically we can just do this before this is even connected to anything, so we can just take these apart. Let me zoom out so you can see a bit better what's going on here. We can take these apart and, you know, build this part without any other annoyance. These are still prototype parts at this point in time. The important that we understand is that these side panels have little pegs, and these little pegs will go into these slots on this side. It might not be that visible on that side. And what we want to do is we want to take this and insert them sideways enough that these are gonna just lock in place and allow to close and align with the rest of the side of the vehicle or the leg. So we just go ahead and do the second one. Just make sure that I remove any extra bits that are not supposed to be there. Like that. We just got the peg. And peg it into place, slot, make sure that it's aligned, and that's it. These are not being sanded yet, so they don't look nice, but for the sake of the instructions, you can see what I'm doing. And these slots in, it's better to do it on the side that is not all ruined by the print. And here we have 3 doors ready to go on. We can open it up and see that it's locked down all the way as well. As you can see, they now look more aligned, and when they close up nicely as well, all aligned with that, which means when the doors are in place, they just close like that. 1, 2, I don't have a third one, but you gotta guess. And there's one small way just temporarily, just to show. So you want them to align like that, so that you still got space for your fingers to go through and open up these panels once everything is built. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this, and this part is officially ready to go. So once we have all the parts, you will have these tabs go into these slots and close everything together. Now this is the old prototype, so they don't align correctly. As you can see, I changed the positions a little bit, so I'm not gonna go ahead and do that. And instead, for the foot, you will see that this slots to the ankle, which is that part there, slots all the way in, so that when it turns, this is aligned. Well, this is aligned for sure, but this should also align to the side of the foot a little bit, like that. Okay, so it kinda gives you the profile of the tank as a continuous line instead of being a separate piece. I'm not sure this is all the way in yet, so if you're not sure, you can remove the ankle temporarily until you glue everything together, and as you turn, you can see that this is not all the way in, so probably there is something in there that we can clear out. Yes, I can see now with the light. So make sure that this bit is nice and clear. There you go. So that when that goes in there, it's nice and flush like that. So you can see now that's flush. So now when you put your foot back on, this way, I think, yes. When you put your foot back on, you now have that aligned perfectly. So in theory, when this is on the ground, it does look like a tank. Well, the underfoot is not well printed on this copy, but it is what it is. So there you are, foot and the side of the tank ready to go. And then before you put this side on, you probably want to have the knee part that goes in there. So I'll take this as an example, and I haven't cleared this yet, so but this will go in there, and then this slots in there. Okay, this is the other way around. This will slot in there like that, and that slots in there, and then it's ready to build the knee on it. I think that the knee should be built separate and then put it together. Now my copy here has some extrusion problems, but it's still gonna work because anyway you're gonna go flat like that, so I'm not worried about that. But hopefully your copy will be better. Now, why did I create this as a separate piece? Because, you know, with wear and tear, you might want to reprint this, and you don't have to reprint the whole thing. Simple as that. Anyway, that was side panels, and then we wait to finish the leg. For this part of the tutorial, we are going to look at the ankles and the knee joints. Now, My parts here are a bit weird because I printed with some filament that I need to change, so I'll worry about that later. For now, I'm just gonna show you how to put together the ankle and the knee joint so that you have that and you don't have to worry about what happens to my copy. So the ankle, let's start from the ankle. So there is some great parts that are printed here. We got the part that will attach to the leg, which has a big peg. You have this part here that has a big connector for the foot. And then we have these two parts that will connect together to hold around this, like this. And that's the first thing to consider, is that you want to make sure that these two come together, close together, because you'll need to glue them together. And then you want to test that this thing can do a 360 without too much problem. If you have problems, then you want to make sure that you don't have any debris in here, clean out everything, make sure that it's, you know, filed nicely, sanded down a little bit, and then sand down and make sure that it's a circle and not, I don't know, some weird shape because of the printer settings or whatever. So all that being said, let's start showing you how to deal with the ratchet. So as you notice, these rings have two slots and there's two notches on this part for the ankle. So what I do is I'm gonna put this here, and you want to go in first on this side, make sure that it slots in, and then you push on this side and it's in. Now this is how it assembles, and while it's fairly secure, you might still want to add some glue to it just so that, you know, it doesn't escape. I designed this in multiple parts so that if for any reason this breaks, then you only need to print the ring and not everything else. The part that is the most annoying part is this one. So the way this works is that there's a gap here enough for you to have the cog glued in place here, and for this to slot in and then press against this part so that effectively, let's put this in there, so effectively you have the ankle become like this. And with this part closing everything off, as you can see, it becomes a solid piece of ankle. And the final bit is this rod. You want to keep the end with this tab, let's call it, on this side, and you want to make sure that it goes through all the way into your ankle, and it comes out, and it should be the right size to hold everything together to some degree, even without glue. But sometimes it's harder to go through than it wants to. Here we go. So with that in place, here we go. As you can see, that comes out just slightly. So effectively what you can do is you can get to this point and then glue this together. And this is how to put together the ankle. So this is obviously not ratcheting at the moment because we didn't glue the thing in place. But I'm gonna show you how to be precise for that as well. So obviously you can say, well, there's a hole in it. I'm just gonna put this through the hole and hold the thing in place, right? That's about right. Okay. So let's remove this as well for now, so that I can glue it on camera. If you struggle, use something thin to go through in between. Try not to break anything, and slowly move it out. Use something as a leverage. Try not to break this on camera. But yeah, it's slowly, here we go. So I like to use this Gorilla super glue, like I mentioned before. I should have done a list at the start. If you forgot, go back and watch it. The reason I like it is that as a gel, it doesn't run around in every place, and instead I can exactly put it where I want it to be, and then I can add a couple of dots in every corner like that, and then I can finally replace the ring. And as you can see, there is a little bit of spillage, but I'm pretty sure you can do a better job than me. But it doesn't run around, you risk less that it goes on your fingers and all that kind of stuff. Now for the cog, I like to take the rougher side from the print, and that's the one that I'm gonna put some glue on. Then we're gonna take this part. I'm gonna put this through just enough that it can guide this in the right place. I mean, you can kind of see the hole, right? But just to be sure, I want to make this go through, because then I'm 100% sure that we're not gonna get surprises when this is misaligned and then things don't go the way they should. So that's the ankle glued together, and then we will reassemble it. So again, this is gonna go through. As you can see here, there's enough clearance for that to go through, and then you're gonna push down together. This is gonna go through from the cog side into the armature like that. There is a slot along here to allow for this to go through as well, and once it's through, it's probably gonna go through like this much, so that this comes and closes the deal, and you have about what, 50-degree ankle tilt here, but that's as much as you're gonna need for this figure. So let's put this aside, and let's come to the more complex knee joint. So we have a similar pack to what we had before, just longer and a bit thinner. The cogs and everything of the knee are gonna be smaller, and here I already have done some of the homework. So we got a smaller ring that goes inside here, so similar to the ankle. Then we have the cog that are glued to this part. So this is gonna be the bottom part, I think. Bottom or top? No, top. So this part is the top, okay? So you're gonna want this. This is the part that goes on the leg, and this is the part that goes on the tie. So the bigger one is for the tie. So the one that goes on the leg, it doesn't matter the orientation, by the way, because there's only one way to go unless you go left and right and you mix the parts. Otherwise, you can never go wrong. So as you can see, we're gonna start building this, and we're gonna put our trusty thing through all the way. So this is half of the knee already in place. We're gonna start with this part because this needs to go in here at the bottom, and it doesn't need to go in that thing. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna put a little bit here, just spread it a bit so that it doesn't go into the area where we don't want it to go. We're gonna have, I don't know if you can see this done like that. Let me zoom in a little bit. Let's see if I can lower it down. Oh, that's better. So we have these two parts here. I put some glue on this, and this is gonna go here to close that part, okay? While this one is gonna go like this, and we're also gonna put some glue on this side here and a tiny bit here, so that goes to close the top and then close this part here. Okay, so now that is the knee together. So that's the top part and that's the bottom. Once this is connected to the legs, it will be much easier to attempt to close it. Be careful because this is gonna be like a little bit frail without the leg, so you want to make sure you don't break it, otherwise you have to separate again and reprint everything. Well, reprint this to fit it, but otherwise that's our knee together. Again, not maximum range for this figure, but I feel that it didn't need it. So that is now, well, let's see, let's bring it back, because the other benefit of that gel glue is that it solidifies so quickly. I'm not gonna test the cog as a joint, but just to show you how to assemble this. So again, these go together like that, and then you press it down in position. You can start adding this coming through. If you need help yourself with this, I'm going to put it on the hard bit. There we go. So that's clicked in place. Then we want to add this bit here. And then finally, a little bit of glue on this guy. This area here. just not too much, just enough that it squeezes and it goes a bit everywhere. And voila, that's the ankle done. Just make sure that things are still moving, that need to move, and all that kind of stuff. And then once that is dry, you'll be able to put it in place. So now we need to start looking at doing this joint. Let's call it the tie. So the tie joint is very simple. You have this part here that has an empty space at the back where we're gonna slot the ring in, and then we will glue it in place, but I'm just gonna show you, or better, you should test and make sure that it fits. Okay, so that fits in there, and then this is the cog. You will recognize it because it's got more of a square fit in there. Oop. Forgot to take this bit out. Here we go. That's good enough. And that is gonna fit in here. So as a guidance for you to glue it in the right place. Okay, I'm not gonna do it now because otherwise it's gonna break. And this is simply just gonna sit at the front. So this is gonna be pegged in there when the cog is glued in place, and that gives you your ratchet. So let's go ahead, and I'm gonna try and take this out again. If it wants to come out. Oh, and you might as well just leave it there. It's not gonna go anywhere. But if you want, glue it in place, as usual, 1, 2, 3, 4 corners so that you don't glue in place the actual springs. So that is like that. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna actually clean up a bit. This, because it is not clean. That should fit better in there. Clean up excess debris, like that. So yeah, much better now. So glue, because that is just a guideline. That is not going to support the weight of everything that this needs to support. So I'm going to be generous with the glue there, but not enough that it's going to go everywhere, but just because, the way it's printed. So that is getting squeezed together, and then we'll let it dry. Now, once it's dried, all you need to do is to assemble it together and glue this part here together so it doesn't move anymore. That's it really for the tie, because then this fits in here, this fits in here. We have this ring goes into the crotch, and the bigger square cog goes pressed in there. Again, you can glue it in place, but it's fairly tight fitting, and then there's going to be another part here that will hold it together anyway. So, you can save on some glue. And then this one, yeah, it's not gonna be ready for that. Yeah, no, it's make sure that it's still gluing together. But that's it for the tie. You have, once it's dried, you should be able to use the ratchet without problems. Depending on your glue, it would take more or less to dry, but I rather let them dry as separate parts rather than holding together, just in case, some glue that is a bit rogue and goes in places where it shouldn't go. And yeah, that's it. Luckily, it was just sun debris. So now what we're gonna do, we don't really need to put the filament all the way through. So what I like to do is to feed through a decent amount of filament, so that, that side is fine. And then we're gonna do this side. I mean, that's gonna be enough. So yeah, that is the foot done. Once this is dry, that can fold away, and then once that folded away, that can close, and we're solid. Now for the ankle, this was glued together but it came apart, so we're gonna take this bit here and glue it together again. Wonder if it's because it's matte filament that this glue doesn't seem to hold as nice as the other ones, or it's just didn't have the pressure to hold it together because I put this on the figure as an example. So we built the ankle already. We're just gonna glue it back that together quickly, and we're rocking. So the way the ankle fits in here is simply to go through that slot, and if you want to, you can put some glue. I find that it doesn't really need it, but if it becomes loose in future, then you know that you just need to glue it. So that slots in. You want to make sure that it goes all the way through. See that there is not much gap there, and we're done. So next we want to take the knee as well and ready to be assembled with the rest of the leg. So we're gonna go up a bit with the camera. You can see Brody in the background. Maybe that's distracting. Let me lock my computer. And we're gonna look at the rest of the leg in a second. Just tidying up a little bit. Don't forget things. So last time we saw the doors on this side. I actually glued the tank threads on here, so I'm gonna show you how to do it on the other leg very quickly. I mean, it's not rocket science, but for the sake of completion. Now this is the other leg. It's not glued together yet, but I'm gonna give you some pointers on this side. So I'm gonna use the other glue instead. Now this one takes much longer to hold together, but it tends to be a stronger adhesive overall. So I think that given this is PETG as well, it was not meant to be, but I managed to print it as PETG by mistake. I'm gonna put some glue here and some glue on the top, just so that it goes and it connects to that slot there and then attaches to the leg, and then you should stop moving and should support the weight better in tank mode. So this glue is also gel-like. It's also from Gorilla, and I usually just splat it generously because it's also much cheaper than the instant one. And then I'm gonna put the rest on the actual threads. Let's put it a bit more inside like that, so that it doesn't maybe show as much. Something to mention about this one is that it builds some pressure and then it keeps coming out, so you want to really close it right away so that it stops oozing out and you don't risk having glue all over your workplace. So now that we got glue on this and glue on that part, we're just gonna squeeze it together and leave it there for 24 hours to dry. Yes, it's 24 hours. In theory, you're supposed to put sand glue on both sides and let it dry a little bit and then squeeze them together, but I find that that step is not necessary if you really leave it for 24 hours to dry before you start moving it. So that's one part of the leg glued, and then we're gonna do the other tank thread on the tie. But it's the same story. There's a slot, you want to glue them in there. So I'm gonna reopen the glue, remove any superfluous old dry bits that might be flying around. I try and be generous with this one, and then we're gonna add some here. As you can see, let it squeeze. Even if it goes a little bit into the tank threads, doesn't really matter. If anything, it's gonna solidify and then build, you know, that connection to the parts. And then squeeze it in, squeeze it against, and that's it in place. Okay, so we got all the tank threads done, and they're gonna stay there for 24 hours to dry. But luckily, already done it on this side, so we don't have to wait. So we put the doors on the last time. We are gonna slot the ankle axe, whatever you want to call that, in place. We're gonna take the knee that we built for this side and we're gonna slot it in place as well. You want to make sure that you didn't use the wrong panel by mistake, and you will notice immediately because one side this slot is longer than the other, so if you use the wrong one, you're not going to be able to put it all the way through like this. So now we got the other side of the leg coming in, and it's also going to slot and then hold it together. I find that, again, my parts are fairly well fitting and you don't necessarily need to glue them together, but for the sake of saying this is the final build, I will glue it together and then leave it to dry for 24 hours using the big glue. So again, I don't really have rhyme or reason or where to put this glue, so I'm just gonna spread it generously a little bit all over. Close this, and I'll show you briefly where I put the glue around these connectors, and then finally make sure that this is aligned with all the things that need to be aligned, and then squeeze them together nice and tight like that. Be careful not to leverage too much on the tank threads, just in case, but you should have, oh, that is not going all the way in. Ah, that's annoying. Maybe I didn't clear the thing. This is another thing about this glue, because it takes 24 hours, then you can take things apart and, you know, still be able to put it together again in a second moment. So, yep, there is something lodged in it. There shouldn't be there. How did it get in there when I had already cleaned that part? I don't know. But again, make sure that all the things align and it closes nicely and tight so that, you know, there is a seam, but it's not as visible as it needs to be. Obviously, with, you know, the cheek colors here that I have because of the problems that I had with my version, it's gonna show more. But yeah, and I think I managed to squeeze this out of alignment as well, so I'll need to review that later, but that's not a problem for now. So this is all nice and squeezed, and the next step for the leg is the doors. We're gonna put this side with the notches into these grooves, and they should be nice and tight. I could have probably done kind of a better job at this because they kind of want to pop out when you open them, but yeah, I mean, it's good enough for now. But that definitely is something you want to pay attention to, because unlike this guy, they like to pop out. So yeah, they might get better as you use them more, but now that you got this in place, they should be able to close together like that, and again like that. So you got all your leg done, nice and glued together and ready to go. So for the next bit, we have the tie. Again, tank thread already glued, put together. You want to make sure that this, you know, fits without too much trouble. And then we have the ratcheted ties that we put together. And what we want to do is we want to slot the tie in place, make sure that, you know, it has still range of movement, and slot that in that way. So we are gonna glue this part instead, and I'm still gonna use the, let's call it long-term glue, or the soft glue, whatever you want to call it, the slow glue for this part. So again, fairly generous with the glue, because there's, you know, a lot of stress that can go into this component when you put weight on it at a later stage and you don't want it to come apart. You also don't want to overdo it in a way that glue goes into the tie that wants to spin. But I put a decent layer of glue on it, and now we make sure that it aligns with the knee again on the front. And then it aligns with the tie and looks good to me. We squeeze it together nice and tight, and we will let it rest. So now that we got all of that done, all that's left is for the central bit. Again, it goes on quite tight, so you could just leave it as is, but I have a feeling that, you know, with the way of the rest of the figure, this is gonna, you know, come apart. So what I suggest is to put just a little bit of glue at the front and the back. And again, we're just gonna use the long-term one so that it's a bit stronger. And I'm gonna dare and go ahead and apply it on the other side as well, so that I can start building the other leg and show it to you in a second through the magic of internet and video editing. So I'm gonna just do front and back so that it doesn't go into the ratcheting mechanism. And I'm gonna do, what is it? The other side. I still haven't finished it, so here we go. We got this side also glued together and waiting for the rest of the leg. So let me bring it in a second, and then we can showcase the finished bottom half. And here we go. I have just finished assembling the other leg. And I can show you slowly panning down the figure. This is still open because it's drying, but we got this side as well all together. And yeah, that is Captain Carey lower legs all done. So while the other parts are still finishing printing, I got here crotch and waist parts that we want to add to our now very tall figure. So let me zoom out a little bit, but I think I'll need to figure out how to go on with this trail because this is quite tall now. But yeah, so we got to this point and we now have these pieces here. So these are grooves for this bit, so we're gonna glue them together. But before we do so, we want to make sure that we got this piece here that allows to transform the waist in the various modes to fit in there, and it can slide back and forward. Okay, so having that in place means that we can add some glue here and here and then put this together on the thing. I'm gonna put some glue on off camera and then I'm gonna show you where I put it. So a little bit there. I'm gonna be a bit more generous here. And as usual, you want to make sure that you don't put glue in places where it can go over too much and then glue something in place where you're not supposed to. So we're gonna do that, and that's it. We want to make sure it's well aligned, make sure it moves, and all that kind of stuff. Now, looking at the back here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna prepare this piece here, right? So this locks this thing in place. So what you want to make sure is that it goes in and out easy enough, but it locks it in place. And then you want to put just a little bit of filament through there, so that when we go and put it in place, the next step is gonna be to add the other crotch section that also has a tab to keep it in place. As you can see, this has these notches here to hold what is it? Yeah, here, that will go in there. So this one only has a slot for this piece here to go in place, and then this would go this way. And as it closes, everything is gonna fall into place. Well, failing to do so for some reason. So the front looks alright, so it's on the back here that it's failing me. There we go. So once we got that in place, I'm gonna put some glue on this piece here, and again, generous but not too much, especially in areas that can overspill and then lock things in place when they shouldn't be. Again, these parts need to be able to transform, and look, didn't show you. So just put some on the top and some in there. So now when I do this, it's gonna lock it in, and we got that done. So make sure to squeeze everything in together. My piece here kinda fell apart at some point, so I have a problem there. Next, we take this front piece here, make sure that you clean it out so that things lock in place, and this is gonna connect to this, so you can test in advance that locks and turns as it should be. It should be the same on either side, so you can do whatever you prefer. In my case, there seem to be bits that got snapped off, so I'm just gonna hold it there. So this is gonna sit in this position like that, and what we're gonna do is we want some filament to go through there and find home. But then, as you can see, make sure it doesn't push things out of place, and once it's at the right distance, then we can snap the rest off. Alright, and that's done. A little bit, I can leave it there just to, but at least it's contained. Now the next piece is gonna be this one. Okay, now I think I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna show you everything that you should be aware of without this thing behind it, or well, we can leave it. No, it's distracting, isn't it? Alright, let me move this away. Right, let's lower this down a bit as well. Right, so what we got here, this is what I call the waist area. There's quite a few bits to check, so you want to make sure that these are all nice. Mine are not, so I probably need to reprint this piece actually, but I'm still gonna show you the assembly. It's not irreversible because everything just locks in with filament, and these notches here need to be filed down nicely so that when you take these parts, These are not gonna be glued. They are supposed to slide back and forward, because what happens is that when this sits on, let's call it the crotch area, it's gonna lock it in. This is because the top part is still kind of heavy, so if you don't lock it in, it's gonna fall everywhere, and we don't want things to just fall and break randomly. So you can leave it like this position so that things can go through, and then you can lock it in. But yeah, you don't need to go too far. So that is in place. Make sure that you clean, your bits, your supports, if any, in there. And that's it. We can leave that there. Now for the next part, you want to make sure that you drill holes around the skirts areas. So we're gonna do the sides first. So we got this. Now I already put through filament here, but again, it's not rocket science. You just put filament through and make sure. Actually, maybe it's better if I show you. So these guys have one hole that is closer to the border and one that is further away. You want the hole that is closer to the border to go into the side piece, and the hole that is further from the border to then go on the hip of carry. So I'm gonna put this through all the way, and once it comes out on the other end, we can finally snap it away, and that gives us this. So now this is the front. This is gonna be the right hand side piece, so we're gonna put it here. And now I need to find the piece of filament that was holding it, like this, and put it through. Can you see it? This way is better. Put it through, but you don't want it to come out all the way at the front. So once you have secured this, you can just snap it again, and we're done. Other side, same as the first, so this has already been fed through. You want these big notches to be the inside of the hip. So we got this here. I got this other piece of filament ready, and you can just wiggle things a bit until things fall into place. Sometimes takes more effort than you wish you needed, but that should be it. Okay, snippy snap, done. Now for the back skirts, these are on these boards, and you will see later the transformation why, but there is only one way to put this in, because I don't think this way works. No. So you will have the pieces that have, let's say, the road design inside towards the hips, and voila. So now we need these pieces here. Now these ones will instead have the road panels towards you again, but we also need this piece here. So this, you want to make sure that these are drilled through, and then you want to sand down a little bit these notches just so that it fits through the other panel. I separated the panel because I wanted it to fit on the printing bed better, and yeah, I think it's achieving that fine, so we have no problems with that, I think. So I'm gonna put this piece here. So you want this design with the pipes at the front and the design with the rods inside the body. I think it's better actually to flatten it now. So we're gonna leave it there. Okay, we're gonna leave the design with the rods upwards, and as you can see, these also fit there as well for obvious reasons. So now all I need is filament to fit through here. As you can see, it starts poking through, so you can start adding this bit here, and then I can add this bit here, and then push it through until I can. Here we go. And oh no, that didn't secure it yet. In the middle. Maybe I didn't drill it in the middle. Oh. I guess I don't need it drilled in the middle. Not quite happy with that. Oh well. For now, just know that that's done on that side. As we put filament on this side, it should lock it in place more securely anyway. And we're starting with this side, and again it goes through all the way. There we go. You see that I'm pushing through without too much effort because holes have been drilled and re-drilled to make sure that filament doesn't become a chore to do. And now this is not going anywhere. Flaps are flapping. This is standing. We lost this bit here. Always make sure that you're going a 40-degree angle and then move it down. And we're done with this bit. We just need to snap away extra bits so that it's all flush. There we go. And we got that done. So now what we can do is to flatten this out. And we can bring in the next bit, which we will need to glue. So first thing first, we need the Autobot logo and this panel here. So we're gonna glue this in place, and then we're gonna glue this to the other bit, okay? Just splodge. I mean, it doesn't need much to hold it because it's got 3 slots, unless you want to change the logo, you know, then maybe you can avoid gluing altogether. And then I'm gonna put generous in there, and then some up here, generous in there, a little bit here, a little bit there, and we're settling for this. Now another thing that you probably want to do before gluing this together is, as you might see, I had to sand down a bit these notches these notches are gonna go on the legs, and also this are gonna, I would dare say, attach to the legs so that things don't move around when you are in base mode. So you really want to make, oh, that was a mess. You really want to make sure that yeah, the things are, you know, all tested before you put things together, or you're gonna end up having to sand down things when you have everything glued together, and then it's gonna be a big mess. But I already play tested this, and I was able to start the base mode with these parts and things, let's say, locking in place. So that's why I was happy to start making this video. And before I go on with other parts, I'm gonna let it glue together. So I'm gonna end the video here for today, and I'll recap with the videos at another time. So today I'm gonna put together the spine, backbone, whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna zoom back a little bit so that it's easier to see. So we have a couple of things to do with this. We got the what do you call it? Platform. Yeah, whatever. This thing needs to touch there, and then we got the cannon turret to attach, and we got the rod that will go through the back to connect everything together and hold it in place. So to start with, I'm gonna start with the turret cannon. So this is gonna fold away like this, and fold all the way out. All you have to care about is make sure that your holes for the filament are drilled through with the tool, so that everything goes in and out without too much pressure like this. And if you feel that it's a bit too loose, then you can always add a little bit of bend to your filament, because that adds like a spring effect. So I went ahead and done that, because once it's in there, it will try and straighten out and make things a bit more like have some kind of friction. So I'm gonna put this all the way through. I need to lift it up a little bit to align. Sometimes it takes a better nudge. There we go. And you want to make sure that this is nice and flush, because this is gonna go inside the the armature, whatever you want to call it. So you don't want this to end up causing problems. So as you can see, this is all in the position. Even if I shake it, that part is done. Next, we're gonna take this, and it doesn't really have an orientation, because obviously this goes with the C shape into here, and then again we get some filament, and we put that through. And again, I pre-cut this because I test assembled it, but you want to make sure that this is all nice and flush. And then again, I could have done some bends to give it a bit more friction. As you can see, mine is a bit loose, but I'm fine with that, because this is always gonna see either this way or this way, so it doesn't really need to support any weight. So now we come back here, and as you can see, there's holes here that will go through here. So what you can do is you just put this through a little bit, and in this case I put two separate piece of filament through, just because it helps align things from 2 different positions. So that is gonna go through. Then this other one doesn't want to go in for some reason. There we go. So again, nice and flush, because there's going to be other stuff that is coming through, and then you can make it sit flush, and that's how it stores. Or, and you know, if you want, you can have somebody sit in there and man the cannons. For this bit here instead, we're also going to take this and make sure that it's drilled through. I've done that in advance, but just to show you, you know, you want to nudge it through nice and sure, and all the way through until, you know, you don't have much resistance when you're pulling out like that. And I have this piece of filament, so we're gonna put, well, for this one you want to make sure that you bring in the platform, connect it, because you want to make sure that this is facing the right direction. So you want that to end up this way. Okay, so again, some filament, we can put it through. In this case, it's a whole piece, and as you can see, it sticks out a little bit, so we can get rid of the extra. Try not making it fly everywhere, and then this sits flush like this when it's transformed. Last but not least, you want to make sure that you clear those holes and, you know, sand down the stick a little bit. The thing, mine kind of goes through very easily at the moment, which means I might have to put some glue on these sides to avoid it falling when we're moving the figure. But for now, I'm happy that that's this done. So we have now what I promised in the next step, which is to put together these doors. So as you can see, I'm testing filament going through. It's not really feasible to go all the way through with filament, so we are gonna do it 2 ways. And what you want to make sure is that you got this design right with this kind of road that I designed out for this platform. So we're gonna put filament through. You're not seeing it on camera, but I'm gonna push it through as much as I can and then snap it off. Same on the other side. And they've been designed in a way that they should stop opening to some extent. So hopefully you'll find that that's enough for you to have the base mode with the doors open, and that is as far as it goes. Because yeah, you know, as you can see, it does have a little bit of bend, more than maybe I wanted, and the trick is I could make this bigger in a newer version if the bend is too much. But the problem becomes, I guess there is plenty of space here to get to, so I'll think about it. In the meanwhile, we're gonna get some gray filament instead, and this one will need to go through also this bit here, which I don't think it goes all the way through either. Let's see if it manages to push through. No. So that's as far as we're gonna go. So you want to place this on top. Maybe you want to close it as well so you can test it and make sure that it's doing its job. And I mean, I could use the blue one on this side so that since it starts with blue and we can fit it as far as it goes. There you go. Then the other side. Let's start with the gray. So you're asking me, maybe you're thinking, how come you got so much gray if you know just lying around not doing anything? Well, once I get to a certain point and I need to print these big things, and I was just saving it because, yeah, I didn't feel that I wanted to start a print and then end up with halfway through having to swap the filament or having problems because, I don't know, printer decides not to detect that the filament is finished. So yeah, just chop it off, put it in a box and keep it for these occasions. So now that we got this, we can come here, and again we had our peg in place, so we can put everything attached like this. And again, this part doesn't require glue, so everything holds in place without problems, without glue. And it's the next part that we really need to consider using some glue, which is the shoulders. Now, I'm only gonna use the bottom part of the shoulders for this. Let's do it this way so that you can actually see it a bit more. And zoom back a little bit. So, as you can see, there are slots here on this part of the shoulder, and then there are slots here for the pegs. And what you want to do is you want to fit it through, and you know, it kinda already locks in place because it's tight, but I think that at this point we want to add some glue to really avoid problems in future. So I'm gonna take it out again, and we're just gonna add a little glue down there and a little glue. Yeah, I think that's the only place for me. So we're adding glue down there, and we're adding glue down there. Okay, because everything else is exposed anyway. So we're not adding any glue obviously to the pegs because these are gonna just need to move. And one, and why are you fighting me? Why are you fighting me? Is it because I went in first? Oh, there you go. So now we just want to give it a good squeeze. And what we have here is now we can possibly open this panel. And these guys are supposed to be able to flip out for the base mode, like that, and like that. So again, you want to make sure that you push down as much as you can, and everything folds back, and then that locks in, and we're done. We got the shoulders locked in. We're good. Well, the bottom of the shoulder, at least. So let me show you how this is gonna work. Maybe I'm not gonna show you. I might leave that unlock. This stand is stupid. I've got a new stand coming, so hopefully we can do the arms with the new one. So yeah, we got the shoulders done. So the next step will be to put this on, but I'm gonna wait to do that because we got the shoulder bits that need to also be part of it. So I'm gonna take a moment to test assemble it first. This time I don't have a lot of time, so we are just gonna build a hand. So to start with, you want to make sure that you have this peg in the right position. I already prepared all the parts, so the filament is gonna slip through quite easily. It's a little bit difficult to align this bit with this, so I've done it in advance, but you know, you just need to make sure you clear out everything, and then eventually it will align and you'll be able to put through your filament just like that. And I'm gonna snip away that tiny bit that I left just to disassemble it, and that's it. The other thing you want to make sure you pay attention to is the rest. So this is gonna be the part that is gonna mount it. You wanna test it and make sure that it goes through without pushing it too hard, but you still want to have, you know, solid enough so that it doesn't flop around for nothing. We are gonna put the rest of the arm aside because we are focused on this today. Now, the next bit that I really want to underline is the ball joint. Now, the thumb's got a ball joint, and it needs to be able to transform to store away like that. So it's not like a full ball socket here for that reason. So my suggestion is, if you have a glue like this one, you can coat the ball joint with that glue, because it gives you like a TPU kind of finish. It feels soft when you rub it, and that allows it to have a better feeling of like staying in position where it needs to be. You want to make sure that the glue is completely dry before you put it into the socket, otherwise you're gonna glue it in place. But I would fully recommend coating it with nail polish or glue before you know, you actually assemble it. Or test it out. If your printer prints it in a way that it's already strong enough, then you may not need to. Now, for all the joints of the fingers, it's gonna be the same thing. There's gonna be a little bit of filament going through, and as soon as it's through, you want to make sure that it's nice and flush, and then we snap it. And that's the thumb, all done. Now, these ones are gonna be the same. There is one bit that is the one that goes into the hand. Then you're gonna have a shorter bit that is the middle phalange, and then there's gonna be the fingertip. So you can align everything together and make sure. I will build everything separately if it was you. every single finger and then put together the hand the way I'm doing now. If you're not a fan of the separate fingers, you can always put, all the filament through every finger and create the illusion of having the hand all together. It's a bit weird to do this with the camera in front, but managed. So that is the first finger done, and I'll quickly do the other ones. So I'm pretty much done printing the body at this point, so I have a fairly good idea of what's happening. I think I'll need to record some kind of introduction to the tutorial as well, which you should have watched by now, so it's gonna be weird, but I'm just gonna talk just to say something to fill this awkward moment. And if you haven't noticed in the files by now, you might have found some kind of a weird shape that I added in as a, let's call it an Easter egg. So if you're not noticed it by now, go and look at the weapon folder and you should find something that can be printed with some kind of transparent plastic or shiny metal finish, whatever you want, and that will go on the weapon when you're using it, obviously, as a weapon in robot mode. Now, my recommendation is before you put the thumb in, you start with one finger, put the filament through here, filament through the first finger, and then we move to the next. And push the filament through, just like that. Don't worry about not being perfectly aligned at the moment. The other thing you can do is you can just push some filament out so that it's easier to put the next finger in. And I use squeeze and align the last finger to the slot. Oh, maybe easier to do when the hand is down a bit. So you can push. Here we go. And we got the hand done in a flash. Done. Can make it a bit more flash. And we got this. Something I could have done, again, I've done it before, but bending the filament a little bit gives it a bit more of a effect, like a spring when it goes through. Try not to break it, but giving it, a little bit of a strange shape can go a long way, making the fingers not as floppy as the way almost I can go. So let's try this way. I'm gonna put this through finger 1, finger 2, finger 3, and now it starts getting interesting. Then hands down, push against the knuckle, push it through. Come on. There we go. And now we got the hands done. And just to show you, when you got the weapon, which I haven't shown you yet how to assemble, but it's supposed to go something like this and like this, or maybe the finger can go away for a second. It's supposed to hold it like that and like that, and that's the hand holding the weapon. It doesn't really tab in or anything. You're kind of left at the mercy of how good your fingers are at holding together. But yeah, stays there. It's kind of heavy, so should be able to hold it without problem. And there's that. So yeah, the finger might pop out from the ball socket now and then, but yeah, like I said, due to transformation, it's a bit of a weak socket. I might also glue some of these short filaments on the knuckles, because they might tend to pop out otherwise. Well, otherwise, here we go, hand finished. And just to show it, when it goes into the arm, well, the arm is on a mushroom peg like that, so that's the part that goes to the elbow. Then we assemble it this way, and then we assemble this way. Maybe push it through like that, and this is the front. Yeah, probably need to put a tiny bit of glue on this things just to hold the filaments in and avoid that from happening. Come on. Here we go. So close the first, and what? And we got the arm done. For the other part of the elbow, you're gonna have the ratchet ring, the ratchet cog attached to this part, and this will just slot in whatever position you manage to slot in. And then what you want to do is you take this circular peg that slots in here. Now what we need for this, we need it to go all the way through. This is not the one I was using. This doesn't feel like the one I was using. Yeah. No, this is not. There was one that I tested with. It's definitely this one. So you put it through the elbow all the way through. Yeah. And then, because of, like, it needs to avoid falling off, so if you experience that falling off, put some glue here, and this way this is gonna have space to swivel, but you're not gonna have trouble with the arm falling off on the side. This thumb is a bit dumb. Let's move it down a little bit, so yeah, it's a bit more in the socket. So here we have the lower arm all done. To attach the armor pieces to the lower arm, all you have to do is, again, make sure that you sand down your holes and that they fit. So do some test fitting without pressing too hard before you break your parts. But you want to have this part here that has the pegs. They need to go towards, let's say, the inside of the figure, and it's got these pegs inside that will go into the slots, and it should just squeeze all the way in. So that now we can take this part with the cannon, and it pegs on one side and it's got slots on the other side. So that's also part of the forearm, all done and complete and assembled. So yeah, it's got some weight on this forearm, so I needed this ratchet to really be solid. Remember, I bring my ratchet joints, like the peg, the ring, and the star, they're all in PETG because I wanted it to be more solid. I tested it on the prototype with PLA and it worked fine, but it was definitely softer. This has got a very strong ratchet, like this is not going anywhere despite the weight. So thumbs up. Okay, for the next part, this is gonna be an easy one. So we got the cannon that goes on the back of this armor plate, and before you install the cannon, you want to make sure that you attach this bit here. So you have holes for your filament. Make sure that you try and fit some filament through before you start doing anything, so that as usual, that all the parts are gonna work. That's gonna work. Now we got the cannon, these two sides. So I'm ready to go. Now, at the end of the day, how you want to mount this is gonna be up to you. I prefer the aesthetic of the cannon looking nice when somebody's mounting it, which means it's gonna add this orientation with the grid lines facing up. So when it's folded away, it's flat. But if you prefer the other way around, at the end of the day, you're building it the way you want, It should work without problems this way around, and then when it folds out, you're just gonna have it looking that way. Or maybe half and half. Maybe we can do half and half. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like I said, then you have a grid when it's closed, and you have the nicer cannon when it's open. Up to you. Personally, I'm gonna do this way, where the things are gonna look nice when the cannon is folded out. So I'm gonna put it in place, try and align holes as much as I can. It's a bit of a pain to get filament through here, but it's not impossible. You just need to find, as usual, the right position for everything to align, and then it'll go through no problem. I managed a moment ago, so just need a moment. Here we go. That's all the way through. All right. So I'm gonna get my clips. Clip this way, and this really needs to be flush because obviously this part goes inside the cannon. So now we got that part done. The easy part is to do the cannon. So we're gonna put some filament through here, align it with the rest, voila, that's it. You also want this to be cut as flush as possible. both for static and because it's easier to pull it away if there is no filament exceeding, and that's how, yeah, there is a bit of filament that didn't get chopped or it's coming out the wrong way, and now it's a pain to get it out here. Maybe it was just out of place. There you go. Done. That is your Canon deployable anytime. And then for the sake of having somebody manning it, you can try and squeeze them in there in some position as you see fit. I mean, he's far from handling it, but you know, he doesn't really shoot anyway. So that is it. And then, yeah, so when it's in robot mode, you can have it out if you want to, you know, but yeah, you can just deploy it as you see fit. And then, of course, we're seeing already building the armor on the arm at the back there, so that's not the problem. So instead, you're gonna go on and show how to build the inner shoulder. Now, the inner shoulder comprises of quite a few parts because it needs to move in two directions. So you're gonna have this small bit here that actually does all the pegging for two axes. So this peg here that has the lip like that is the one that goes to the actual main body shoulder. So on the main body we're gonna have a ring like this, and here instead we're gonna have this slightly thicker cog glued like that, and on the back here instead we're gonna add this other cog glued, because that is gonna fit inside this ring that we're gonna have at the back of the shoulder. So I'm gonna remove this temporarily so it's easier to handle. What we are gonna do first is, well, actually, okay, so got it. Now it's gonna go through without problems. So we're gonna restart from here with this going through at an angle, and then we're gonna take the armor piece here in place. So now with everything aligned, should just be a matter of pushing things through, and now we're having a much better life. And I'm not gonna put it all the way through until we've done this side as well. So here is gonna, you know, need to align everything as well. And that's through the first part, and it needs to meet the hole in the shoulder. That's more fun to find. And here we go. So you might want to glue this also. I didn't find the need for it. Once it's in place, it doesn't really move. But now that that is in place, you can push that through all the way. I'm gonna do that later because I don't want this to get, you know, trapped. But here we have the other missing part of the arm. So now you got this, and you got your arm in place. All good. And then the way it's gonna work is it's gonna go inside the collarbone like that. And the reason why we got this slit is that when you're transforming it, let's see if I manage to show it, but this has just enough clearance to go through, but to be able to peg it together with the rest, you need to pull it out and then move it across and then slide it back. So that's the intended purpose of that, is that when you're transforming it and you're, well, this is gonna be flat down, okay? When you're transforming it, in fact, you start with this piece as well. So this piece just pegs in, and I'm gonna show you better on camera. So peg and peg, and that's it. So that piece just pegs in like that, and you know, from the front it's gonna look like that. So before transforming, you want to take that piece out, slide the arm to the side, and then slide it down, and then you got all the clearance that you want to transform it. And then once you're up, then this can slide up, and you got the arm transformed, and then you can push it in against the body so that it doesn't look like it's got skinny shoulders. You're still gonna have that piece there, but you know, it's minimal. So now that I got all the parts fitting, from this direction, that direction, and then this fits in there. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna take first bit here, my trusty Gorilla Glue. I'm gonna push this just enough so that it's got a guide for that one. And I'm gonna put some glue down here. We're gonna take, this needs the thicker one. Gonna take this, make sure that it's flat, there's nothing in the way, and we're gonna squish it down in place, and then we're done with that part, and take this out before it gets glued in place. So now that we got this in place, it's gonna take moments to glue because of the insta glue. So we're gonna do the other side. To do the other side, we're gonna do a similar thing. We're just gonna put some glue down around the hole. We're gonna try and align it visibly with our eyes. Can align it with the light so that I can actually see. And then immediately try and push this through to make sure that you know, still does the job that it needs to do. And that's the hard part done. So now we can put 4 dots of glue at the 2 points here and the 2 other points here as usual, so it doesn't interfere with the springs, let's say. And that's the thicker ring that goes against this part. And then we take the other arm bit and we do the same. We'll put a bit here a little bit there, a little bit there, and a little bit down there. So yeah, try and always keep the nicer printed part up. So that, you know, it's nice and smooth. And that's how we glue the rings and the cogs. I'm gonna give it a minute and then we're gonna assemble everything together. So I want to steal the top shoulder collarbone, whatever you want to call it, and this is the bit that is gonna attach to our side. So on this side you're gonna have this slightly thicker ring like that. So now that is gonna go like this, and of course when everything is gonna be glued, it's gonna have a nice ratchet there. And as you can see, there is space here, so I'm gonna show you, but this will need to be glued. I'm not gonna show you on this part right now because it's gonna need, well, maybe I can show you, but it's gonna need to glue this cog here, this ring here, then the peg is gonna be glued here so that it's gonna move around with the shoulder. And then we're gonna have, probably need to sand this down before we go assemble it, but this is gonna peg through here, through the shoulder, and through the armor. So the armor is actually gonna help keep the shoulder in place because everything needs to pivot on the same axis. But one thing at a time, okay? I just wanted to show you where everything goes. But effectively, you're gonna have this external piece, this inner piece, you're gonna have this facing this way, and then you're gonna have this facing this way, so, or this way, up to you. But that's the shoulder assembly. I'm showing you. That is the shoulder assembly that needs to move in this direction, and then it needs to move in this direction. So this is my design. I don't know if anybody has ever done it this way, but it works for me. And the only problem is having to make sure that things are not gonna fall apart when you start transforming it. So effectively, this logo is not just for show. It's actually gonna peg into this as well. So when everything moves, it moves around that shoulder. Everything has a reason in the design of this. So let's take everything apart and let's start gluing a couple of parts. I'm gonna rip a piece of paper just because, at least, you know, if something drips, it drips on the piece of paper. So that is for the shoulder. Keep it there, but I'm gonna push it through out. I need to sand this down. I'm gonna do that off camera. Right, so it's been a few minutes and I really want to show you the assembly. So I'm just gonna take the parts and probably take them apart as soon as I finish recording this, just so that things don't go together in the ways that they're not supposed to. But we now have the shoulder all assembled, and we're gonna keep it facing forward, and this is the part that goes into it. And what we're gonna do is we take this peg and we're gonna feed it through until it comes out on the other side, like that. So you'll want to do this. I'm not gonna do it right now because I want to take it apart again, but you will glue this and let it dry. But in the meanwhile, paying attention, or maybe you can glue it at the end, okay? because it's still going to be exposed. Now the next bit is a bit tricky. There is not a lot of clearance here, but it's enough for it to go through. So as you can see, I'm literally just inserting the cog into space and turning this in the right spot. And you shouldn't really need to like nudge things out of the way, but you could. So next we're gonna take the armor plate and we're gonna line everything, and we're gonna have to start from somewhere. So either way will work, but I'm gonna start with the back one, and it needs to go through. So if you're not done a great job sanding things down, you might start crying. So I'm gonna need to review this and sand it down a bit more. Why is it not going through? It was fine a moment ago. Oh jeez. So let me start from here. That is absolutely fine. I just need to sand down this a little bit more. That one is gonna be fine. That is gonna be fine. It's this one that needs to be fine. Right. So be right back. Also, in rubber mode, you have these slots at the back. So that's why you want this to go all the way in, because this piece is gonna be pegged in here. So you have storage for this bit here in rubber mode as well. So yeah, and it kind of protects that from slipping out if it's too loose for some reason. So that's the shoulder all assembled, and obviously we have for our armor that goes on and clips in place. We got the other piece that also clips in place, and voila, that's the arm ready to go. Let me zoom out. That's the arm ready to go on the body. Oh, and last but not least, so I just glued the piece after all. I think everything dried enough. So these side turret pieces can peg underneath the shoulder. So to have the complete look, you want this in there, and voila. This is why you want your cannons to be able to hold the place, because otherwise they're gonna flop down. But you know, if you want to, you know, battle look to have the cannons deployed, that works as well. I don't think you will want to store anything in there though. It's a bit of a strange place to have any micro. But yeah, that's the full arm, waiting for the glue to dry, and then we're gonna assemble the top part as well. So somehow I managed to lose the footage of when I assembled the top part, but this is the easy part now. You have the figure at this point, probably you want it lying down, and you got the arms built separately, and the only thing left to attach is the top of the shoulders. So all you have to do is obviously you want to align everything while the shoulder, the body is lying down. And then there are some locations where you want to put some glue, like around here and probably through the back. And then you want to really, well, put everything in place and squeeze it nice and tight so that everything stays in place, and leave it there to dry with the glue. I used the Gorilla Glue gel, the long slow one, because I wanted to make sure that this part stayed together, because it needs to hold the weight of the arms. And it's been a few days now, and as you can see, it's still doing fine. So no sign of separating or anything. So I haven't recorded the transformation videos yet, but I needed to re-record this while I was editing the assembly video. So apologies for that, but it was the easy part at the end of the day compared to everything else. So I'll take this chance to thank you all. If you're watching this, probably it's because you purchased the design. If you haven't purchased this yet, it's on Cult. It will soon be on Creality Cloud as well. If you're watching this months down the line, then probably it's going to be there as well. But I suggest that you go on Cults to get the design, because you will have the STL files, you will have the 3MF files, and all the other supporting files that I put in there for you guys. So it's definitely more complete compared to what you can get from the Creality Cloud. And that's it. Next will be the transformations videos that I already partially recorded for the head, but you don't know that yet. So that's it from me. I hope you enjoy building this figure. I know it's not easy, but if you got to this point, well done. So the last thing that we want to build for the main body before we move on to the Headmaster carry is the weapon. So I got some parts here. None of them are glued together, but I already test assembled them as usual. We're gonna need a little filament as well. And as usual, I have my Instaglue, Gorilla Glue, and I have the more long-term Gorilla Glue, just because. But let's not waste time. So the first things that you want to do, you want to take these parts here that have this rod, let's call it, and they will fit into these holes. The way they're being printed, you probably need to clean out this, so you want to make sure that this can go all the way through. And in theory, it stays there without problems, but we're gonna add a little bit of the long-term glue just because we want to avoid things falling apart or sliding out by mistake. I'm just gonna put a little bit in there and then let gravity do the work and squeeze it in, and that's one done. Second one, I'll do the same. Some glue is already trying to come out, so maybe better close it, otherwise it's gonna go everywhere. And again, just slide it in and voila. Now you want to make sure that these fit nicely on these holes, and you want it to be nice and snug because you don't want this to be too floppy. So these are going in maybe a bit too snug on this side. Maybe I've done it. Yes, so that's, doesn't have a side, but just because of, you know, I sanded them down and now they are resting there. So that is for the top of the weapon. And these two, when they're not as a weapon, they'll go on top of, let's call it the lid for the carrier box. So let's put that aside for a minute. Oh, in fact, the last part for the weapon is this transparent effect part that I added. And the way it works, it just rests in between here, but it's thin enough that will go through either of this. Now this is not symmetrical. There is a part that is the part that you printed against the bed would be, let's say, smaller compared to this side. So what I do is I leave the bigger side to the front. So you want to put this into the third notch on both sides, and then you just show it in. I wouldn't glue this part for obvious reasons, but if you find it annoying and you don't think you'll ever transform it back into normal mode, then go ahead and glue it, but it just fits in there and it doesn't fall or anything, so you can keep it that way. Now for the important part, the handle. Now this you want to make sure that it slides through but has enough friction that it stays in place and it doesn't fall when it's in weapon mode. For that reason, what I've done, I added some of this glue on top here, and then I leveled it so that it gives it like a rubbery TPU finish without being TPU. It's PLA, but that allows it to really, even when it reaches there, it's just gonna hold it and not bounce around. And there is a little bit of filament that we need to put in there, so I'm just gonna go ahead and, as usual, you clear it out with your drills and whatever you have, and you want to make sure that it's nice and flush so that things go back and forward and don't cause problem. If you feel that the filament is falling through too much, then maybe you can put a dot of glue on there as well, since it's in a cavity. So, and then this is transparent, so it doesn't leave the white marks that the other glue leaves, so it kind of seals it away without too much fuss, and that's it. So I would just take maybe a knife and flatten that glue a little bit so that it doesn't look like a blob, but that'll become transparent and stay transparent, I should say. So that's it. So that is done. Now on the sides here, I already put some of that glue because I wanted it to be a bit more holding the position. But what you want is that shape there to go in at that angle. No, the other way around. You want this shape here to go in at this angle, and you can see that it will align the holes like that. So now I can put some filament through that already pre-cut, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut it, or we can sand it down a little bit, or use a tool so that there is less chance for this to come out when because now that filament has got a bit of a small head like a screw, and that kind of holds it in place. Second is the same. There's a piece of filament here, so again it's just gonna go through. That's full enough anyway, so hopefully it still holds, yeah, without problem. And then we go through, we find the hole, there we go, all the way through, remove filament, sand it down. It's our trimmer. And that should help it hold it in place. So again, this is gonna go on, let's say, the spine of the lid for carrier mode. But to become a weapon, you just extend it after you remove it from the back. You turn it into this stick, and then the same notch here is same shape as what you find on the back, so all you have to do is slide it in. Slide in the upper version, or maybe I've done it on the other side so it's easier for this part. Yeah, again, there's no favorite side, but it's up to you. But that is the weapon all built. And again, if you prefer, you can keep it short, give it more of a long sword, two-handed sword look. It's up to you. As usual, it's your toy, do what you want. I don't know what that is, but that's also, you know, a thing. But yeah, that's it for the weapon. So for this part, we are gonna do the Micromaster. I actually have an almost exact copy of this because it came with cash and carry. The design that is a bit of a what would you call it? Spin-off of this project. So for the actual head for carry, that will then become the head for Captain Carry, we need to build a Micromaster. And this follows pretty much my usual pattern of Micromaster, so it's going to be very familiar if you ever done any of this before, with the difference that instead of turning into a vehicle, it's just turning into a face. So I have this Headmaster style faceplate, fairly reminiscent of like a chrome dome or something like that, but we have very tiny sunglasses or visors that we need to glue. So I'm gonna do that first, and I'm gonna give a shake to my fast glue and just put a dot in there. And then I might even need to use the pliers to position this because it's so tiny. I'm gonna want to spread the glue a little bit. So that goes right into the notch that has been printed, and it's not gonna move. Next, we're gonna have this small panel here that becomes the front, and you want to make sure that it's got a little bit of, you know, transformation. Where did it go? Managed to pick up the head, and you want to make sure that it's got a little bit of play where, you know, with that. It's not gonna close all the way, but at least hide it a little bit. But yeah, I don't think I ever transformed it back into anything since, and even this guy just goes with his face clear as day, so it doesn't really matter. That's a gimmick that I never understood on the old toys either. So before we go on, everything else is like ball joints and pegs together. So we're gonna have the upper body and the lower body pegged together. The head is in a ball joint, goes in. Arms, you just want to check where the thumb is to know which is left and which is right. Or in this case, you can also tell by the ball socket being a bit further at the back than it is at the front. This ball joint didn't print very well, so let's clean it up a little bit. And then I'll need to consider whether I need to add a little bit of glue as well. There's still a little bit of debris in there. That's the one. There, gone. So now that's gonna stay there more reliably, hopefully, without breaking. And it's breaking. Let's just leave it at that. No, I'll probably need to add some glue. All right, so there's that. And then for the legs, we have a ball socket for the hip. But what you want to do is you want to take the ball socket, there's the right leg, and it shifts a little bit to the right, and then it goes in through here, and then you want just a little bit of filament to hold it in place like that, and then we'll do a good snap, same as the other ones. And we got this, push it through, and snap, and then we put legs on the hip. Again, I probably need to add a little bit of glue just to make things a bit more solid for this version. The ball joint there is too small for the socket now, so it's holding the place when it's upwards like that, but not when it's pointing down, so I'll just leave it aside. And for the back, we got a notch there that is supposed to help you show where the faceplate goes. So all we're left to do is to put a little bit of glue just above it in this area here. I'm gonna point it with the filament. Hey, come on, function. So we want to put a little bit of glue on the area above the notch here, because we don't want it to go inside the hole and block that lower part in place. Unless you want to, then you put glue anywhere you want. But you just want to glue the top part in place, okay? So again, as you can see, because of the consistency of this gel, it's easier to put it where you actually want it. And then close the cap. So finally we can go in. Maybe I went a bit too high with the glue, but you want to make sure that it's nice and straight, because otherwise everything is gonna look off when you have that head on as the actual head. And situated just right. Okay, that's it. That's assembly for Carrie's head. What are we gonna call it? Little Carrie? And this is this twin from Cash and Carry, with arms that actually don't fall off because the ball joint printed correctly this time. You're not seeing them. They're off the camera. Here we go. Little Carrie and Carrie from Cash and Carry. All done. They're both the same thing. They're literally both the same figure. The only difference is that I printed this with the hyperspeed red. Well, this one was just normal red, and this is supposed to be gold, and this was orange, but as you can see, the orange and gold are very, very similar. Alright, so it's finally time to build our headmaster, and we got all the parts printed. I got the leg on this side, almost finished assembly, but we're gonna show it from the start here. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to take the foot and the ankle piece, and you want to make sure that you have a good slide in friction, but not enough to, block it completely. And I had some problems with this actually, but that was my fault, that I didn't clear out all the way, and when I put the filament through, it got locked, so I had to glue it in place already, but it's fine now. So you want to make sure that you got, a good range of movement, because the transformation, the foot is gonna rest like that, but you don't want it to be too floppy either. And at the same time, you don't want to have too much of a hard time when you're transforming it. If you have problems transforming it, what I recommend is that you slide the ankle all the way out like that, and you will see that there is filament that goes in there. And then you want to take this piece here and push it down so that this comes up, and then it gives you a bit more leverage to move things out of the way, and then you can put the ankle up and you can put this back into place, and then you will have your foot without problems. But back to assembly. So you want to put some filament through here, clear everything out, and then make sure that it still works. So your filament goes all the way in and all the way out. So once we got that done, you want to take the leg and we want to situate this. Now, sadly, there is so many panels on these legs that there is a lot of holes. So we're gonna start from here, because this goes all the way to the back and kind of blocks the entrance for this panel. So we want to make sure that this goes all the way to the back, because then the other filament is gonna come from here and it's gonna get locked in. But then we're gonna have another filament that locks this in this direction as well. So it's all a bit messy, but there was no other way really to get the transformation the way it is. The other option is that now that it's in, you push this in a little bit, and then you chop it, because you don't really need all the way through to the back, and that leaves the open, and that's the option B that I'm taking. So that should be free for that to go in. And before we do that, then we need to take this panel. Now you recognize this panel because it's got the extra hinge for the heel, let's call it. So we probably want to have the heel on first. And I'm gonna use my technique of bending this filament a little bit to give the heel a bit more of springiness to it. And we're gonna take one of the small things. Now you want to make sure that you have the full range of motion for this. So you want to test it out maybe with a piece of filament that is not all the way in, and then you fit it through. And as you can see, it's easy to know which side you want to put things in, because there is like a thin side and a thicker side. So again, I'm gonna bend this piece of filament a little bit in the opposite direction to give it that extra spring action to the piece, so things don't flop around too much. And then once it's straightened inside there, it will help hold things in place. So we snap any excess. Maybe you can put a finger on it so that it doesn't shoot for the stars like it just did for me. And here we go. That panel is ready to go on the leg. So we need another of this. And again, we want to make sure there is a little bit of access there also that is blocked by another piece of filament. But it is what it is. So I'm gonna feed it through as far as it goes. Make sure that, you know, everything is aligned. Here we go. That's as far as it goes. I can go in the bin. And then finally, we can align this to that. And feed some filament through. And then again, we can make it happen. And as you can see, it comes out a little bit. So now you want to pull it out just enough so that it frees again that hole. Because then we take the knee joint, align it, and we can put a piece of filament through. And again, this one also needs to go through a little bit more. So we can move that panel away now. You want to push it through because you need to glue the tank thread here. So now we got everything fairly well situated. I mean, if it's fine, it's fine. There we go. So we want to fold this down. See that you can fold everything for transformation. And that's the ankle heel ready to go. You also want to make sure that these notches are nice and clean and they fit. So when you transform it into tank mode, this is supposed to sit there, help it keep the position like that. So here we go. Now before we put this together, we're gonna put the panel on here, which is this one. So again, we got a hinge and a panel. The hole is supposed to go, you know, above. Oh, that's not nice and clean. Let me snap that off. So the hole is supposed to be at the top. So you see that's the hole for the hip. That's the hole for when it's in tank mode. So we can start from either the hinge on the leg or the panel in this case, because things are okay. I'm gonna situate it and chop it. Then I need to get some more filament. And again, you can decide to align this way, that way, doesn't matter. You should be able to fold these pieces around as you please due to the nature of transformation. So that's the filament going through, and it just popped through. So I'm gonna snap it. Now I can reduce it so that it's nice and flush. You really want this to be flush because everything, you know, when it transforms is really also very nice and flush. And there you have it. So the only thing left is to glue the thing that holds the knee in place and the tank treads. Okay, so let's do the knee first, which is easy. We got this part here, and that's gonna go and rest against the mushroom peg. Let me zoom in a little bit for this. So this is gonna go against the mushroom peg, and then the rest of the leg will just sit there. So all we need to do is put some glue in other places that will not interfere with the mushroom peg turning around, because that's the knee joint. And that's it. So that's the glue in place now. I just put a blob, shadow of itself. I don't know if you can see, there's some glue in there. And I'm gonna rest the leg against the other one, like that. There we go. And then make sure you got the notch in the right place. And it goes in like that, and squeeze in, and we're done. So that is an extensible knee in theory. Once it's dry, you will be able to extend it. It's got a little bit of give on the part that you should have cleared out, and we can now glue. Oop. My glue has gone a bit mental on me. Didn't close it. For a little bit of this here, a little bit of this here, or you can add, because one of my tank threads lost the notch, so maybe we can add a little bit here, or you can add a little bit there as well, just to seal the deal. So just want to make sure that these tank threads are not going anywhere. And the other benefit of that glue is that you have like 2 minutes to put anything on it or to move things around. So it's kind of useful sometimes. But sometimes I just want things to glue and stick there, so it's better to use the other Insta glue sometimes. Like in this case, I'm shifting it a little bit to be as close as possible, or it's gonna look silly. Come on, one step closer. There. So I'm not gonna move it anymore and leave it to dry. But that is one leg all done. So second leg, I kinda have it already done. Oh, I just need to snap a few things away, and I need to glue the knee. So I got everything nice and done. And put that panel away. Went outside a little bit. Let me spread it so it doesn't go where I do not want it. That's done. This bit here, this bit here, and that's the second leg done.
All right. I don't know why it doesn't want to come up all the way. I'll figure it out later. Probably need to remove some stuff here. There's a bit here that is not glued properly. I'm gonna do it now. Why does that not want to? Need to. There's a part here that doesn't want to go all the way. I think I didn't do a great job at clearing that piece here. So let's see now. It's better. That folds in. And then the two center parts here are able to interlock each other, and then the front also locks itself. So that is the the bottom of the tank transformed as well. As you can see, still needs to dry, but at least we got it. So the next bit will be this to go up here. I'm not gonna do that yet. And then we have the guns that become the cannons. But before we do that, we need to do the hips. Hips are fairly easy. You got the center part of the hip, and then you got these two that are the legs. What do you call it? The hips. And then you want this part to be at the front, and this part is this part with the grill is the front, and this part is the back. So you want to find the ones that match together, and you want to make sure that you have the longer tab at the back and this at the front. So effectively, I'm looking at this wrong. So this is the top, this is the back, and we need to glue them like this. Okay, so I'm gonna use my fast acting one for this, because I don't want to spend an hour waiting for this to glue together, because things can move too easily on the hip. And we need more precision, so this has a smaller nozzle as well. So I'm just gonna put a little dot in the crease here, and again, because it's gel, it doesn't run around, but if you haven't used it in a while, you better shake it, because it will have separated a little bit between liquid and gel, so the actual glue becomes very liquid, and then the first time you open it, it just runs everywhere. So that's one hip done. So my suggestion is always shake it, just to be sure. Then if you see that the first thing that comes out is this honey consistency, then you know that you've done it right. I'm not saying honey because I'm suggesting you to lick it, by the way. Contrary, stay away from eating glue or sniffing glue for that. Or I'm not your mother or father, so do what you want, but I didn't suggest it. So that's the hips. So normally that will go like this, and that's for the upper body to connect. But when you are in tank mode, you can just turn the hips like this, and then the cannons will fit into where the legs normally go. And there you have tank mode completed. Pew, pew, pew. So next we will do the top part, or the shuttle mode. So now that we got to this place, we can start looking at the vehicle, shuttle vehicle, and assembling the head. So we're gonna start with the eyes. Now I printed mine in transparent plastic because I got the light box put together to work with the LEDs that I bought. Now I'm gonna show you briefly now the light box because it's very simple. It comes in 3 parts. The front that looks like almost like a skeleton for carry. Then there is the button, and then there is the back panel. What you want to do is you want to insert your LED lights in the correct position, and I only glued the top part because then it gives it a springiness to the light box. And then effectively when you push this button, you're pushing the lights towards the front here. So you want the lights to be orientated in a way that the button that gets pushed is behind that, otherwise it doesn't work. Okay, and one side seems to not like sticking on, so yeah, it's what happens when you buy cheap products. But this is the light box, 3D printed and fitted with the LED lights, and then we're gonna see it together with the face. But for the sake of the assembly, we're gonna need, I'm gonna use the slow glue because it's transparent. We don't risk ruining the light effect. But we're just gonna put a dot here in the middle to hold the eyes in place, and then we're gonna probably put some glue at the back to hold it in place. Okay, so that's the eyes in place, and I'm just gonna put a little bit around here so it doesn't go flush with the rest of the print armature. So don't try and push it too hard into it, but you're gonna be left with, you know, that kind of space. You know, the miniatures are gonna go over it anyway, and doesn't prevent people from sitting into the shuttle. But now that that's glued, we're gonna let it dry, so we're not gonna put the light box against it. And instead, what you want to test to fit is the face going into the shuttle. So you should be able to squeeze it in like this, and then it goes all the way down. And once it's in there, then you can start thinking about gluing from the inside. And again, I'm gonna use the slow glue because it's more transparent. Gonna glue it in place, and then we can forget about it. Can probably push through a little bit to one side to help yourself. I'm gonna show you in a second how. So yeah, because it wiggles a little bit, then you can push left and right, push and glue in, and then once you're done with that, turn it around and squeeze. The other benefit from the slow glue is that you can still move it a little bit until you're happy. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that, you know, this thing aligns nicely. And to help you with that, you can even take the bit that will become the place where the headmaster slots in and put it in place as well, so that it helps you keep the distance and, you know, make sure that it fits everything. So now that this is in place, you probably want to leave it to dry for a bit. So what we can do in the meanwhile, we take this armature. Now the door just fits into these notches with its own notches, into the slots with the notches. So all you have to do is to wiggle a little bit until it fits in there, like that. And what you want to make sure is that it's not all the way at the back, because you should be able to open it all the way down like that, and that will reveal the power levels. Theory, you could paint that as well, you know, just to make it look like the old toys. And then we have the Autobot logo, or if you printed the Decepticon logo, to go in there. And it's on a 5mm peg, so you can, you know, flip it around. When it's in head mode, you'll probably want to turn that around. So that's that. Then we got left the parts for the front and this. Now let's cover the face. So this is gonna be a little tricky. So on the sides you have this, let's call it this rail, and the rail is designed to allow this from moving back and forward. So to get this into place, you will need to squeeze this into the face and a little minute. So I don't know if I'll be able to do this, but you start from this position where it's, you know, almost there, and then you want to, you know, squeeze it and push it, pull it until it's in place. So that will also help keep the face in place while it's, you know, the glue is drying. But it's a good idea to have it done now, so that, you know, you're not gonna have problems later. So there is that. We turn it around and we now have this, which is simply gonna go into these two holes. Now, as you can see, there's two different sets of holes. This is for the fins, like that. And the other two are for head mode, when the hips are gonna plug into. Now, we don't need any glue, so I can put that aside. But we do need a little bit of filament. So first thing first, this bonnet, let's call it. And as usual, you want to drill through, make sure that everything goes through smoothly, and then all you have to do is align the parts and make sure that it goes all the way through. And I'm using gray filament. Probably could fetch some red filament to avoid showing filament in the finish mode, but effectively this is going to be at the back, so I don't care. And then this is the annoying part. So I designed this when I had other plans, and I left 5mm holes in there. They're not really necessary anymore, but they're staying in the shape because it's more annoying to try and repair it than to fix it. But there is other 5mm ports, because this is gonna turn that way for robot mode, and for the head mode. So yeah, you just need to make sure that it fits through without problems. And once you align the holes, so the side of the shuttle has this L shape because this will need to be moved around depending on the mode, and I'm gonna show you in a minute. But for now, all you need to know is that once it's aligned, it should be a very easy job to put filament through all the way like that, and you can start snapping it and play around to see that this thing works. So in shuttle mode, it's gonna be all the way at the front like that, and then this closes and hides all the gaps, mostly, yeah. And instead, in other modes, you will need to shift it at the back, turn it 90 degrees, and then push it down into it, and then it can close again. And in theory, you got, you know, this design that matches the front, so it's nice and flush. And that's the head without the arms, or the sides, or whatever you want to call it. So we can pull this out, and now that we've tested that it's all working, we can work on the sides to push the filament through and snap it at a shorter distance so that it's barely just going through as usual. But that's the shuttle without the wings. And yeah, you can put, you know, your, like, I'm not gonna put it down because there's glue there, but you know, you can see that you can easily fit in there, especially if you put it in a kneel position. So this one is my favorite because it kind of looks like it's, you know, is racing the shuttle. And there is that. So to show you, well, I kinda, it should come through a little bit, but even like that, you can see the LED lights coming through the eyes. It's quite powerful. So they're cheap from the operability point of view, but they're quite powerful from what they are point of view. So yeah, I'm gonna leave that to dry, and in the meanwhile, I've been through an arm to build. So this is gonna be the last bit of assembly. It's been quite a journey, but we got there. So let's start from the hand. This is simple. It just needs to go into this notch. It doesn't quite lock in place as much as I would like, but it's not gonna be, yeah, it's a bit loose. So probably I could add a little bit of the slow glue here to stop it from falling out, but for now it's doing okay. The next bit that you want to check is the two panels here. Now, as you may notice, one has a notch and one doesn't. That is to accommodate the elbow. So you want to have the notch upwards. So it's, oh, the camera is not really showing it, but you know, as you can see, it's going to accommodate the elbow bending a little bit. So we squeeze it on there, and then we squeeze it on there, right? And that should allow that to hold through. Now I'm gonna remove the top one for a minute, or in fact let's reassemble this for shuttle mode, because instead this want to go on the arm. So you want to align everything so that this is gonna go into the black armature, and then this one aligns with that on top and closes and forms, let's call it the front of the turbine or whatever you want to call it. And this is the new hole that I introduced in this version to allow for the legs to hopefully lock a little bit more to the side of the head. Now for this part, you want to make sure that you take the part that has, let's say, the protrusion as the upper arm, and the part that has instead the notch as the lower arm. So you align the holes like that. I've got a little bit of filament here that I can use, and it just goes through, and then we can remove the excess, and that's it. Then we get the upper arm aligned, push through some filament, again remove the excess, and that's the part done. Now for the next part, you want to prepare the wing. So we want to take this ring, let's call it, and you want to drill a hole into the wing, and you want to kind of go into the wing like by maybe 0.5 centimeter, so that when this goes through, it goes through into that notch, and then you can put some filament through and everybody's happy. But it's not gonna go all the way through, so you just need to stop when you feel that you put enough through, kind of thing. So that's feeling like it went through twice, so you must have the wing done. And this gives a little bit of extra transformation where you can have the wing at the back in robot mode, and then the wing is up for shuttle mode, and then for the face mode. Excuse me. For the face mode, again, it goes back. So the last bit is the shoulder. That is the part that I needed to reprint to fix it. And as usual, we just put our parts through, check that they're aligned, put some filament through, make sure that things are nice and snug and not to lose, and then remove any excess. And then finally we put the ring with the wing through the arm first, and then this should have enough friction to now attach to the rest. And that's the wings done. The other one already done here, so they look like a pod racing engine to some degree, if you're familiar with Star Wars. And then for the shuttle mode, you just attach them to the side into that hole. So effectively it's just the shoulder being the shoulder, and it does that. Then again, if you find that things are too floppy and you want to make them a bit better, then using the soft glue, let me zoom out a little bit. Using the soft glue, you can add, I already added it to the shoulders because they were a bit floppy, so now instead they hold position nice and snug, and because of that way that glue dries, it feels almost like rubber, so it does have a good grip onto the 5mm that otherwise will be flopping around. And this is with the tank. The tank is a tiny bit smaller. And then for the combined mode, you can combine the tank with the with a shuttle by using these holes that are beside the neck, well, beside the face, I should say. So maybe we can take this and plug it into here first because it's easier, and should be easier. Yes. And once that's done, then you can place this back on top. And then usually you might want to fold down the wings, or you want to take this off and transform it so that you don't risk breaking stuff. Like that. So this is combined tank and shuttle. That is what we see on the prototype from Hasbro. That is supposed to attach then to carry the box through these ports that we have added on the feet. So to connect the carry main body to this, all you have to do is to switch the feet at the bottom out with 5mm pegs and connect it here. I'm not going to show you now because I don't have space, but trust me, it works. Well, it doesn't work in pulling the actual carrier box because it's too heavy, but it works in connecting it and making it, you know, one vehicle, air quotes. As for weapons, you can store them inside the tank. There is notches to do so, and don't have access to the thing right now, or you could, I don't know, put them into any of the other 5mm that you have on the figure, and that's it. That's really up to you. So that's really the end of the assembly for both the Headmaster. We have our Micro Headmaster. We have Headmaster double. Is it Duocon? No, something like that. But double vehicle that becomes one Headmaster, and then it becomes the head for Captain Carey. Now for head mode, I'm gonna record a separate video because I need to let glue dry and all that kind of stuff. But that's it for now. In fact, I will record a separate video just for all the transformations. So, you know, you can start assembling it, but you know, when it comes to transformation, I mean, some things are straightforward, others are not. The main body is fairly straightforward on how to go through the various modes. I think the head has a couple of tricks that you need to align things the right way to lock in place and you know, make it look like a head rather than just a mass of pieces of plastic put together. So, but that ends the explanation on how to build Captain Carey with the Headmaster, with the Micro Headmaster, with the Lightbox, with the weapons, and all the kind of stuff. So I hope you have managed to build yours. I'll look forward to see your makes and anything that, you know, you want to show me via Cults, via my page on Facebook, or you can find me on Creality Cloud as a certified designer as well. So really, up to you what you want to do or where you found me, and you want to reach out to me for questions or to show off your versions. I would love to see different colors, different versions, or if you didn't do any Autobo or Decepticon logo and made your own logo, anything like that, I would love to see. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and you will enjoy this figure as much as I did. Cheers!